There is something profoundly revealing about the eyes. You can silence the mouth, you can rehearse restraint, but the eyes are portals through which the unconscious leaks into the visible world. I, Carl Jung, have long said that what we repress does not vanish, it waits, and it seeks expression through symbols, gestures, and glances we cannot control. When a man loves you but pretends he doesn't, his eyes become his greatest betrayer. You may notice it in fleeting moments, the way he looks at you when you're not watching,
And how quickly he looks away when you catch him.
That brief hesitation is not indifference, it's a confession. His eyes are trying to say what his mind refuses to allow. Love, when hidden, doesn't disappear. It transforms into tension. And the eyes, unable to lie, become the battlefield where emotion and suppression collide. This avoidance is not because he feels nothing, it is because he feels too much. He is frightened by the depth of his own emotion. His ego, which fears vulnerability, commands him to retreat. Yet his unconscious, ruled by longing, pulls him toward you. This conflict between desire and fear plays out silently in his gaze. The more he avoids your eyes, the more his heart betrays him. When he looks at you, he faces himself. You awaken parts of him that he has not yet integrated, his tenderness, his longing, his capacity for surrender. These are aspects of his anima, the feminine soul within the masculine psyche. To meet your eyes is to confront that inner world, to risk being seen not just by you, but by his own hidden self. And so he retreats, thinking that by controlling his gaze he can control his feelings. But the unconscious laughs at such attempts. His avoidance is a form of revelation. The unspoken glance, the nervous smile, the sudden stillness, these are not accidents. They are messages from the depths. If you wish to understand whether a man loves you but hides it, look not at what he says, but at what his eyes cannot conceal. The truth of love often whispers through silence, through the eyes that linger too long or flee too quickly. What his heart feels, his gaze will always betray. And when his eyes have already confessed what his lips deny, his actions begin to follow the same rhythm of contradiction. You will notice it, not in grand gestures, but in subtle inconsistencies that whisper louder than words. He may say, "You mean nothing," yet he remembers the smallest details about you. He may insist he doesn't care, yet his presence always seems to orbit around your life. This paradox is not deception. It is conflict. The eternal struggle between what the conscious mind declares and what the unconscious feels. Carl Jung observed that when a man is torn between his ego and his emotion, his behavior becomes a mirror of his inner war. The ego, seeking control, builds walls of logic. It tells him to stay detached, to preserve pride, to protect his independence. But the unconscious, the realm of truth, has its own will. It moves through instinct, compassion, and invisible attraction. So even as he speaks of indifference, his hands tremble slightly when you touch him. Even as he tries to maintain distance, he appears where you are, under the pretense of coincidence. There are no coincidences in the realm of the psyche. The unconscious always finds a way to express what the ego represses. His contradictions are not signs of manipulation, but of suppression. A man hiding love behaves like a pendulum, swinging between closeness and withdrawal, warmth and coldness. One moment he's attentive, drawn to your energy as though it grounds him. The next, he detaches abruptly, trying to reassert control over his emotions. But these shifts are not random, they are symptoms of love restrained by fear. The stronger his feeling, the more fiercely he resists it. You may notice he listens when you speak, yet pretends distraction. He protects you in quiet ways, yet mocks his own tenderness. It is the classic defense of the heart, to disguise care with irony, affection with indifference. He is not hiding from you. He is hiding from what loving you reveals within himself. When behavior contradicts words, believe the behavior. The unconscious never lies. Love that is denied will always find its way into action, in the pauses, the presence, and the patterns that language cannot disguise. His behavior becomes the truth his voice cannot bear to tell. And when his actions can no longer disguise the truth, he does what frightened hearts have always done. He creates distance. You will feel it not only in his absence, but in the quiet hesitation that grows between moments that once felt effortless. This withdrawal is not born of disinterest, but of fear. The fear of losing control, of being consumed by something larger than his understanding. As Carl Jung, often observed, love is a force that exposes the unconscious. It brings to light the hidden parts of the psyche that one has long kept buried. For many men, this exposure feels like danger. When a man loves you but pretends he doesn't, he often steps back at the exact moment connection deepens. It is not because you have done something wrong.
It is because your presence awakens the very vulnerability he has spent years armoring himself against.
The closer you come, the louder his inner defenses become. The ego whispers, protect yourself, don't fall, don't depend. Yet the soul trembles, knowing that the act of retreat is also the act of loss. Distance becomes his illusion of safety. He convinces himself that by staying away, he can remain untouched. But the psyche knows otherwise. What we avoid externally continues to live within us. The man who runs from his feelings does not escape them. He only carries them into solitude, where they echo even louder. His silence, his withdrawal, his sudden coldness. These are not signs that love has vanished, but that it has grown too intense for him to manage consciously. Sometimes he disappears just to see if he can forget you, but instead of peace, he finds restlessness. The absence he creates becomes its own form of presence, reminding him that the bond still exists. Distance then becomes both his shield and his torment. It is how he convinces himself he is in control while secretly longing to return. When you sense this space forming, understand it as fear, not rejection.
He is not avoiding you. He is avoiding the transformation that love demands.
For love, when genuine, dismantles the ego. It forces the heart to surrender its pride and face its own fragility. And for many, that surrender feels far more terrifying than loneliness itself. And yet, even as he distances himself to feel safe, his affection cannot remain entirely hidden. Love has a way of slipping through the cracks of fear, expressing itself in quiet, almost invisible gestures. You will notice it in the way he listens when you speak, how he remembers what matters to you, or how he subtly shields you from discomfort without ever naming it as care. These are the unconscious acts of love, small instinctive movements that the mind cannot fully suppress. As Carl Jung, have often said, what is denied by the conscious will eventually emerge through behavior. And here, in these subtle acts, his heart betrays his pretense. A man who loves but hides it will rarely confess his feelings directly, yet he will express them through attention. He may offer help without being asked, notice when you are tired, or silently step aside so that you can feel at ease. He gives not to impress, but because something deep within him compels him to protect what he values. His gestures seem ordinary, but to the attuned observer they speak volumes. For the unconscious communicates through symbols, not speeches, and care is one of its purest symbols of love. He may mock his own kindness, pretend indifference after showing concern, or cover tenderness with humor. This is his ego attempting to regain control, to hide what the soul has already revealed. But love that hides is still love. Even when denied, it speaks in the smallest acts. In the way he makes sure you're safe when crossing a street, or how he subtly notices the tone of your voice when something is wrong. These are not mere habits. They are reflections of his emotional truth. The paradox is that he cares most deeply when he appears most detached. The ego resists vulnerability, but the unconscious insists on connection. And so he finds himself caught between the two, expressing affection while pretending not to. It is through these contradictions that his sincerity becomes most visible. For when love is real, it cannot be fully silenced. It always finds a language of its own. And sometimes that language is care, spoken so softly that only those who truly feel it can understand. And when his quiet gestures of care begin to reveal too much, jealousy soon follows, though he will never name it as such. Instead, he hides it behind logic, reason, or casual indifference. You will see it in the tightening of his jaw when you mention another man, in the subtle shift of his tone, in the sudden coldness that wasn't there before. He tells himself, "I'm just being rational." But beneath that reason lies emotion, raw, restless, and afraid. Carl Jung have often said that the emotions we refuse to acknowledge do not disappear. They descend into the unconscious and begin to rule from the shadows. Jealousy, then, becomes a symptom of love he is unwilling to face. He may insist he feels nothing, that he simply noticed something off. Yet his body tells the truth. His attention sharpens when someone else enters your orbit. He becomes defensive, withdrawn, or overly analytical, dissecting the situation as if emotion could be controlled by intellect. But this is not analysis, and it is disguise. The psyche, in its complexity, finds ways to express even the feelings we deny. And jealousy, more than any other, exposes the fragile boundary between desire and fear. When a man loves but conceals it, jealousy often appears as an argument with himself. His mind reasons that he has no claim over you, while his heart whispers that he already does. That inner conflict burns silently. To admit jealousy would be to reveal care, and to reveal care would make him vulnerable. So he buries the emotion under sarcasm, distance, or cold rationality. Yet even in his denial, his energy shifts. He watches you more closely, listens more carefully, and grows quieter in your absence. Jealousy, in truth, is not a flaw but a signal, an indication of attachment the ego refuses to acknowledge. It is love's shadow, revealing what the conscious mind cannot yet accept. The man who hides his love will use logic as armor, but logic cannot extinguish emotion. The heart, repressed too long, begins to speak through irritation, silence, and glances that linger too long.
His jealousy is not proof of control. It is proof of connection.
Trembling beneath the surface of denial, and yet, beyond the jealousy he hides beneath logic, something even more mysterious begins to unfold. He starts to mirror you, often without realizing it. This, too, is not coincidence. When a man loves but pretends he doesn't, his unconscious aligns with yours in subtle, instinctive ways. Carl Jung called this process psychic resonance. When two souls vibrate on the same frequency, reflecting each other's emotions, posture, tone, and rhythm without deliberate intent, it is as if the unconscious recognizes connection long before the conscious mind dares to admit it. You may notice that his gestures begin to echo yours. When you lean forward, so does he. When you laugh, his smile arrives just a second late. Not out of politeness, but because something within him is responding, not thinking. Even his breathing might slow when yours does. These are the unspoken synchronies that reveal emotional entanglement. His energy begins to harmonize with yours because beneath the surface, he is emotionally invested. The psyche always seeks balance, and in love, that balance expresses itself through mirroring. He may not understand why he feels calmer around you, or why his mood shifts with yours, but his unconscious does. You have entered his internal world, not as a fleeting thought, but as an emotional presence. Through mirroring, he begins to experience you as part of his own psyche, as though you are not merely external, but inwardly known. This is where the boundary between I and you begins to soften. What makes this phenomenon so powerful is that it bypasses all pretense. He cannot control it. He cannot reason it away. While his ego tells him to remain detached, his body, his tone, and his rhythm quietly reveal intimacy. It's not performance, it's resonance. It's the unconscious saying, "I see myself in you." And yet this mirroring frightens him, for it signals a depth of connection that words can no longer contain. When you catch him doing it, when you notice he adopts your expressions or finishes your thoughts, know that this is not imitation, but reflection. It is the soul recognizing its counterpart. For love, even when denied, always seeks reunion. And through mirroring, the heart betrays its longing for oneness. And when the mirroring becomes too revealing, when the reflection of his emotions becomes undeniable, he begins to fight against it. This is the final and most painful sign, the silent war between his heart and his mind. He fights his own feelings not because they are weak, but because they are powerful enough to dismantle the identity he has built. I, Carl Jung, have often said that love is not merely an emotion, it is a force of transformation. It exposes the hidden self, challenges the ego, and demands surrender. For a man who fears such surrender, love becomes both a longing and a threat. You will see this battle in his contradictions, the warmth followed by distance, the confessions replaced by silence, the longing that hides behind detachment. One day he seems open, almost ready to reveal the truth. The next, he shuts down, consumed by the need to regain control. He may even convince himself that his feelings are irrational, that you are better off apart, or that timing is wrong. But these are not truths. They are defenses. His logic becomes his armor, and his withdrawal, his attempt at survival. When a man fights his feelings, he is really fighting the parts of himself he does not yet understand. Your presence awakens something sacred, the part of his soul that craves connection and fears it at once. Love, when genuine, dissolves boundaries, and the ego resists dissolution with all its strength. It tells him that vulnerability is weakness, that emotional honesty is danger. But the unconscious knows better. It knows that what he resists most is what he needs most to grow. If you find yourself entangled with such a man, remember this: his conflict is not your fault nor your responsibility to fix. You cannot teach someone to stop resisting what they are not ready to feel. Your role is not to chase, but to understand.
Offer compassion, not correction.
Let his silence reveal his truth, and let your peace be your power. Because love, when it is meant to be, does not need to be forced. It unfolds. And the one who fights his feelings today may one day realize that the very thing he tried to escape was the mirror that could have freed him. If you've ever felt the ache of someone loving you in silence, remember, what's hidden still speaks. Don't chase the unready.
Honor your own depth.
True love meets you where courage begins. If this message resonated, like, share, and subscribe to Hidden Words, where we uncover the unseen layers of love, the human psyche, and Carl Jung's timeless wisdom about the heart's secret language.